Welcome to the podcast. It's a no for me. I'm your host, Star.
And I'm Josie. Thanks for joining us today.
Baby, it's a no for me. It's a no for me. You see, it's I'm healing and we're growing. Hey, not here.
Hey, y'all. Welcome back to the podcast.
Honestly, Star, I'm not even going to act like we were just very frustrated. Like for the past, I want to say, well, we started at 1. It's already 5:10. No.
We have been struggling to get our audio, to get our
We've been trying to
video.
figure out the form for these videos.
Yeah.
And we tried about like 5 or 6, and it was a no for us. It was
It's a
definitely a no
no.
for us.
Yeah, Mercury retrograde got us fucked up today.
And on its last day, right? So,
Yes.
yeah.
Going out with the bang.
Tomorrow it goes direct, and we're just like getting the whole, like at once. Like, he got bitches.
Yeah, no, we have
We won't
legit
do it
been.
today.
Yeah, we've been trying to figure this out for 5 hours. So we're gonna try to keep this energy together, but
And we really hope that this comes through, because that's all I'm gonna say there. We
over
have
it.
gone through some stuff.
Absolutely, we have. It's been a struggle, but we, like I said, we learned some things along the way. So let's hope that this will be better than everything we expected.
Yeah, let's
So
there.
yes, we're gonna hop right into the quote of the day, which ironically, go ahead and read that.
All right. So for today we have, when I let go of what I am, I become what I might be. When I let go of what I have, I receive what I need. And that's by Lao Tzu Chu.
So a quote about letting go.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are my favorite. It reminds me though of like that the idea that in order to receive, you have to have an open hand,
Yeah.
as opposed to like a clenched fist. Nothing can You can't receive like this.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's a dope quote though. It keeps you mindful. That very much like the seasons, people, things change. It's not always the same.
Yeah. Yeah, we're always wanting something else, right? But in
Yes.
order for that to happen, you have to be able to let go of what you currently have. So releasing that, and that allows you to, enter into the, like, the new you, or the one that you could become, like it says.
Yeah. Literally, niggas ain't never satisfied, and I think that's the funny part.
What did you just say?
I said niggas are never satisfied. People
Oh,
are
yeah.
never satisfied.
Yeah.
It doesn't
It's just,
matter what you have.
it's pretty nasty at this point how much um, materialistic and superficial humans have became. It's all about what you could obtain, and are never, like we mentioned in the previous episodes, that hungry ghost, that void you're never able to fill.
Yeah.
So yeah, you just hang on to a lot of stuff that you definitely don't need. And that's what basically today's about. I mean, with a whole different little twist, to be honest, because it's about letting go, but in a very
Specific way. Yeah. Yeah.
So you want to introduce the topic, Star?
Yeah. So as y'all know, I have been going through some transitions. What is so funny?
I'm not even laughing, but I mean, I am laughing, but I'm not laughing at what happened. It's just like so much has happened. It's a trip, but
yeah.
you see
I've
it in
been
a
going
positive
through.
light, so it's a
You
good.
said what?
I said you see it in a positive light, at least, so that's the good
At the
thing.
very least, yeah. So, like I said, transitioning. First of all, I just got back from Jamaica, so shout out to the Jamaican booze. Um, yeah, I again feel like that was such a spiritual trip. It was such a great experience. Despite some hiccups here and there, I do feel all of the things I experienced were necessary.
Yeah.
Um, Taking the time after leaving work and not returning to work has been very eye opening, and it's helped me to understand this quote even more. Um, and I think that's why I'm able to see what happened in a positive light, because it's something I needed to let go of. I definitely don't think after so long I was no longer being served. And I barely felt of service in the position that I was in. So today's topic is going to be centered around that change and how I've been able to overcome it. Josie's also going through some of her own transitions that she'll get into. But essentially we are in a season of change.
Yeah.
And knowing when to let go is so important. I find it ironic. um I think for me, God just has a funny sense of humor, because sometimes when we're not willing to let go, he'll do it for you, or the universe will do it for you. And that's kind of where I was at, where it was like, I need to go. And go I went. That's exactly what happened.
Pack my shit.
Yeah, and smooth, like just smooth. I gotta go. And that's the thing. I think people know when it's time to let go. Like, you may have difficulty moving your feet, but your spirit knows. Like, your intuition knows.
So, with you mentioning that, when it comes to codependency, I know that's a big topic we talk about here, but when it
Yeah.
comes to codependency, you're not able to connect to your intuition as much. Like you have, you know, the lack of there. Like you just can't connect. So it goes to show how even codependency shows up in this aspect because
Yeah.
you hold on to whatever you do have for even other aspects of codependency such as like abandonment issues and stuff like that. So, you get it from that sense, and then you also get it from the sense of it's, um, bro, tell me what I just fucking
It's okay.
saying.
You're
Oh,
saying like, but you make a good point, because codependency again is literally the act of betraying yourself. So it makes
yeah,
sense that you're not into able to connect with that intuition. You feel
yeah,
it, like I said. Yeah, you
yeah,
feel it. You know, like you complain about it, you're unsatisfied, you're unhappy, but you don't necessarily register that the reason you're unhappy and the reason that it's hard for you to connect is because you don't deserve what's happening to you.
yeah, yeah. Like we talked about the previous episode, right? The
Mhm.
whole lack of spirituality. It goes hand in hand with that because obviously spirituality has a lot to do with your intuition. And if you
Yeah,
can't connect to that gut feeling, what we call it, then you're not going to be able to move on as easily or let go, like what we're talking about today. So that's why
agreed.
let me bring that in because it does, as weird as it seems, codependency and those traits, or even if it's not specifically codependency, just, the aspect of trauma from childhood, complex trauma, basically.
Mhm.
Um, you have to be able to recognize that and heal that because it's affecting you in your workplace at this point.
Yeah,
It's that creepy thing that just comes and backs and haunts you. It's like it hits you in every aspect of your life.
absolutely.
You
It
don't even
follows you
recognize it
everywhere.
when it happens.
Yeah. Like, and that's the thing. You don't usually realize that it's problematic until it's too late. It wasn't until I started not wanting to wake up in the morning, like self-sabotaging in that sense, where I'm like, now I know I should have been in bed, but I don't have a desire to be there. I don't
You're
want
like,
to be there.
whatever, let me just get
Yeah,
this.
whatever happens, happens at this point. When you start doing things like that, isolating or not, you notice your mood is changing. Um, all of those things are signs.
Yeah.
All
And
of
then
those things are signs.
it's definitely signs of burnout because that's what basically is happening.
Yeah.
Um, and you kind of recognize it too when your behavior towards, I mean, in our case, we have clients that we attend to, right? That's our
Right.
main job. Um, but when you recognize that the engagement is changing, that shows a lot that you're over it because regardless of what happens on the back end, with your work, when it starts reflecting towards your clients, you're just like, what the fuck? They're not even at fault for any of this, and
Yeah.
they're still being a victim of it. So that's when you got to really recognize like this shit's it's a no go at that point. You
Yeah.
have to change. Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Well, with all those changes that you do recognize, um, I mean, you for sure recognize this. So what are you
Yeah.
doing now since that's a no
Since-
go? Have you?
Right? Since it's a no-go. So honestly, since I've been back from the Bahamas, girl, maybe that's next. I'm like, I was in
Yeah,
Jamaica, not the Bahamas. But I keep saying that. So I really feel
I think
like
that's where
that's
your
what's
mom
next.
was previously, maybe.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I've enjoyed the rest, honestly. I
Okay.
didn't realize how much rest I needed until after that vacation. But now I find myself doing a lot more research. I find myself um really really considering what I want out of work, what I want out of any position. So, one of the things that I've done outside of applying for jobs is looking at exactly what it is I desire out of a workplace, right? So, I've had to write down what is it that I want out of work. Things like I prefer to have mentorship if I'm in a position. I prefer to have training. I prefer to get along well with my coworkers. I prefer to have the ability to move up and move around the company if I'm a part of it. There are certain things that I was deprived of working where I worked before.
Yeah.
No growth. I felt very stagnant. So that is something that while I'm also looking for jobs, I ask those kinds of questions to myself and I'm prepared to find out from the employer if that is also something that they're able to do for me.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing. I feel like we'll accept whatever's offered. And there's so much about looking for new employment or just any seasonal change
Yeah.
that is necessary. Like it's a lot. It's a lot that goes into the transition. So for me, like I said, I've been, of course, applying, reaching out to people I've networked with in the past, making sure that my resume is solid, making sure that the people who are able to give me recommendations like that they understand what's happening. And I've I'm surprised because the pay that I had before is quite low for what it is that we do. And that's another thing
Yeah.
I've discovered.
A
Like
nonprofit. So
so not only am I'm selling myself short in many other aspects and areas. So I feel like those are things that I've learned that are just like very eye-opening.
yeah. Yeah, I saw this post yesterday that was like, why does it feel like the new 21 is $7 an hour? And it literally is with how high,
Yeah.
our inflation is at the
Inflation.
moment. It's ridiculous. But I mean, even if you like think about it like retrospect, you're literally getting paid $20, which is one fucking meal somewhere nowadays for
For an
1
hour of your
hour of
time.
your job, of your time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I always think about what you said. Like, yeah, you have this payment, but that's not including the time it takes you to travel, the time it takes you to get there.
Up. Yeah.
Yeah, to get up, to be prepared, to get ready. All of those things affect, the way you show up. And yeah,
Yeah,
I very quickly realized it wasn't worth
I
it.
was telling Miguel this, I think, sometime this week actually, because I was just like, it's Okay, because I've been kind of showing up late to work lately, and
That's how it starts.
it's a couple minutes though. And okay, this is my thing. I leave my house at 8 a.m. That is a whole hour from my
Hour.
clock in time. I'm sorry, but that's all I'm giving you. I'm gonna let
Yeah.
you extra just to get there early when it's 10 miles down the road. Why is it taking me a whole damn hour to get there?
Hour. Yep.
So I'm like, I'm sorry, but I could get a write for this, and I understand that, but it just doesn't make sense to me to leave earlier when that's more of my own time just
Hmm.
for a job where I even have to
Yeah.
pay for parking. Like,
$10 a day. You
yes,
have to pay
what
$10 to show up to work every day, every time you go in.
that's there's like half, kind of half of my hourly
Uh,
wage right there. Like, what the fuck?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, okay. There is free parking, but you got to walk a mile to work or
Yep.
70.75 ish. So you do the math. What's better? If I'm already getting there late, I'm not walking to get
Definitely
to
not gonna make
work.
it by walking a mile. Yes.
That would take me like 2 hours at that point. To
Hmm.
before getting to work, I would have to leave by 2 hours ahead. No.
Yeah.
So you got to gauge what works for you and what does not. Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's
It's about you, the individual. And that's
exactly.
what I'm learning. Not everybody is on the same page, or even feel how I feel. But for me, that is true.
I mean, and that's the good thing about you, writing this down because it's personalized to you. And
Yeah.
then you're able to actually see it and not just like think about it.
Hmm.
Um, even though I always feel like I have a fucking brain outside party shit. But when you visually see it written down, it makes more sense and it helps you actually go with that and not just be complacent with what is given to you or like thrown your way.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think because we often like when you aren't in a job, right? You kind of, there's things that come about, we all got bills and stuff. So you start getting
Right.
a little stressed out and you're like, fuck, let me just get whatever comes. Like at this point, I need,
Yeah.
and that's when people kind of suffer because they get themselves in a situation just as worse or even worse than what they came from or were leaving from.
Right.
So,
Right. And again, that comes from maybe not doing the proper research, not understanding what this actually requires. I to some degree I felt bamboozled when I started because it was not clear, and I understand now why it wasn't clear because clarity is a struggle there,
yeah.
and so is communication. But again, those were red flags. Those were things that I could have seen or asked. One of the things I will never forget is asking, what kind of leader would you consider yourself? And when that person did not know an answer to give me, I should have run. Like, I should have hit the door running.
Yeah.
Because what? I
Yeah.
desire somebody who leads with love. If that's not the kind of work environment, you're not going to get the best of me anyway.
Yeah. It and it's difficult when, people don't understand what it is to look for or what to read upon.
Yeah.
Um we that's what we kind of wanted to dive into today, kind of some tips or, I was going to say tips and tricks, but that's not really what it is here. It's just tips to see what is helpful for you guys to use during the process of even looking for a new job or
Yeah.
within the interview process and stuff like that. I mean, these are just things that we've came across and that obviously is pretty common. But I mean, I know I had an interview last week, so these things are definitely
There
going to
you
be
go.
fresh for us right now because you're seeking and I'm seeking. So
Yeah.
yeah, this is
And
interesting.
and that's about knowing when it's time to dip. And
Yeah,
at this point, it's time to go. It's time to go.
it's
Boom, boom,
been time. I
boom.
mean, I
Yeah.
had applied for the county, so even then, that application took a long time, because
Yeah. Usually
even
does.
though they say there's an opening, it's the county, so the process just takes forever.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I get it; they get a wide variety of candidates, but yeah, um, I know I applied like I feel like it was in April, and
Mm.
they barely hit me back up. They hit me up. They're like, "Hey, there's this position. Do you want an interview?" And I was like, "Fuck yeah!" They're like, "Send your resume."
Yeah.
And then they sent an email, I think the following 2 weeks, and they were like, "We're doing interviews." And I was like, "Okay, like they're gonna be like a week from now." No, this was like a text on Tuesday, and the interviews were for like the following day, like the whole rest of that week. And I was like, "Oh shit, I'm not even gonna." I was trying to
Right?
prepare or something. Um, well, not really prepare for the interview itself, but me logically and like
Mindset, yeah.
emotionally, I'm a wreck when it comes to these interviews. Just because
Yeah.
I think I mentioned it here before, but I just okay. This was my mindset like before, because now I'm starting to realize like it ain't that serious. Like if they don't fucking like you, they don't like you. Like
Yeah, fuck them.
you're never gonna see them again at the you know. But
Yeah.
before it was so nerve wracking to me because I was like, it was just that whole I don't know how to sell myself, and it's like the
Mhm.
unworthiness. So I feel like I shouldn't sell myself in that point because maybe I shouldn't be the one for this job. But now I'm just like, if it's meant for me, it's gonna be for me.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, my question is, do you prepare ahead of time?
For interviews, yes.
But like, okay, what is your steps? Like, do you just care about like you emotionally, or do you read up on the place and
Oh, yeah. So
okay,
I read up on the company. I do thorough searches. I like to know like when they were founded, what kind of, why they started, all of that.
and is this just for your own knowing, or because they might ask you, or you feel that they're gonna ask
Typically don't ask, but I
you?
want to know. I
Okay.
want to know because I think about it like this. So my grandfather started a foster agency in 1997,
Hmm.
and being that I'm also Kin Gap, which is a form of foster care,
Hmm.
um, like that to me is intriguing. So if somebody's coming in, a social worker's coming in, and they want to work for our agency, I'm looking at, what their connection is to the position. Are you wanting to just be paid? Which is, again, like you said, people have bills. It's not a horrible thing if you do, but how well will you fit? And that's the thing. It's vice versa. Not only how well will I fit, but how well will they fit in my life and work with
Exactly.
me? So if I'm reading or researching a company and I see that they were founded because they wanted to make a change, I'm also looking for the stars. So like, how many stars on Yelp do y'all have?
Yeah.
um
Or have no low rating.
yeah, and that's one thing I've learned. The most important thing to me in this season is work-life balance.
Hmm.
And we've had this conversation about quiet quitting where it's like, I don't want to have to sit here and
Yeah.
quietly protest because I'm so unsatisfied. But at the same time, I will set that boundary should I need to. Is this a kind of environment that respects that? That was another red flag for me at the other place, is boundaries were forever being crossed. And as you know, in codependency, it's already a struggle to set boundaries in the first damn place. So not only is it a struggle for me to hold them, it's a struggle for me to implement them as well. And then, do people care? Is the question. They don't have to care, is what I'm learning.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when I'm looking at any company, I'm researching, I'm wanting to know. Also, something that people don't really consider, which was another red flag for me that I thought about later, was their turnover rate. If the person interviewing you just started, like, something about being here is causing people to not stay long. I've
Yeah.
learned people don't quit because of hard jobs or, tasks that they're not able to do. They quit because of people. So that's another thing. Just asking, oh, so how long, like when you first walk in the building, how long have you been here for? When I first started, the person who handled all of my paperwork and all of my things was like there for a month. She didn't even know where to show me. She couldn't walk me around and show me anything.
Well, when I started, you were only there for 6 months, and that was to me like, oh shit, you guys are all new too. Like
Every single person in the room was
yeah.
I've been there the longest, and it's only been a year. Which says what though? That's my thing. So questions like that where you wouldn't even think to ask. But why are so many people leaving? What is it about this environment that makes it difficult?
Yeah. I mean, I think at first when you start a job, it's kind of difficult to gauge that unless you have friends in there already, or you quickly become friends with people.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes, I mean, I know I personally don't like to do this, but because you want to make them have their own like understanding of the person, not like preconceived notions of what we share. But it sucks when the environment's so harsh to like not say anything. So I'm
Yeah.
just like, I don't know.
Like if somebody
At the
looked at me and
beginning,
was like, run
yeah.
before I
Like
started, I would have.
I wish there was like a warning sign on like the person or like the company, like
But there are.
don't enter
That's what I'm saying.
like
Nobody's
the
ever gonna
reviews,
come out
huh?
and tell you get reviews and
Yeah.
also asking that question. How long have you been here? Unless the person's on maternity leave or somebody passed away and that's why. But if most people are brand spanking new, that is a huge red flag. That lets you know now it's either a leadership flaw or like structurally the way that the structure is, that is a flaw.
Yeah. Yeah.
People stay in jobs that they love. Like you don't have such a fast turnover rate when people like being there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's for sure. Um, unless they're like favorites and shit like that.
That too.
But okay, so that's definitely one red flag.
Yeah.
So that's like during an interview, those are things to look out for. What would you
Yeah.
what would you so okay, so that answers my other question. So you do ask questions during interviews.
Oh, I always suggest asking questions
Yeah.
during the interview. And there was a time where people would say, "Do you have any questions for me?" And I'm like, "Nope, you pretty much covered it."
That's
Nah,
all
don't do
the
that.
time.
Yeah, yeah. Um, it is it serves you well to ask questions.
Yeah.
Again, they don't have to be um so invasive, but you do want to just ask questions. Like you want to know, okay, if you're interested in promotion, right? You want to ask, at what rate are people able to move throughout the company? Usually they should have a question or an answer for that. If you're inquiring about like I said, promotion, but also pay, ask. Everything in an interview is negotiable. You're able to negotiate everything from rate to holidays you have off, all of those things. Um, you want to know that training. I'll always ask about training. One of the first things, another red flag. One of the first things or one of the questions rather that I asked in the interview for the last place was, are you what does the care for your client, your employees look like? So are you offering mental health? Are you offering anything of substance as it pertains to the stresses and the strains on this job? And no answer. Well, the answer that I got for that is, oh, we have Department of Mental Health on site, but that Department of Mental Health is for the clients,
Not for the employees.
not for the employees. And mind you, I'm even looking at some of the resources or quote unquote resources that they did have, and you don't have access to those resources unless you're a supervisor. And I would never ask if I'm a supervisor in any like setting. I say yes. because I need to be trained. I ask questions about training. Who will be training me? Who will I be shadowing? How long have they been here for? It's not rude. I want to know if the person that is supposed to be making sure that I do a job or anything well, that they also have understanding.
Yeah. I'm gonna see this from the other perspective, just because that came to mind right now.
Okay.
But so like what you're saying is all like good and dandy for someone who is like very outgoing and who gives like no fucks. Like it's like, nah, if I'm gonna get into this, I'm gonna make sure it's about me and it fits me, right? Fits my
Yeah.
needs. And then you have those people that are like, I'm not gonna ask no questions. I'm gonna get
They're a
the
little
pay
more
that you give
introverted.
me. I'm not trying to negotiate, because then they come from this sense of fear of like, if I ask too much, they're gonna be like, you're too much. I'm not gonna try to deal with you, you know. Um, because you do see that too. Like if there's certain employers that are like, fuck that. Like I'm not gonna get this this
Yeah.
person when they're already doing too much. You know, that's kind of how they see it. But then they also see it from the viewpoint, if it's like a boss or an employer that actually cares, they're gonna be like, okay, I want this person on my team because they're about their thing. They're gonna make sure they get what they want. You know, and that, I think it just depend on, I mean, it doesn't depend on, but it may depend on like the type of work you're going for.
Yeah.
Because like if you're gonna be a lawyer, obviously that's gonna be like, hell yeah, this person
Right.
knows how to negotiate for their shit. But I don't know. I just wanted to mention that because sometimes people are like, I'm not gonna negotiate, or I'm not gonna be asking all this stuff
Asking all
because
these
they
questions.
feel like, you know, they're gonna think wrongly of them if they're too much, you know.
Yeah, which makes perfect sense. I totally get that. You don't want to come in there. So what y'all do, asking questions
Yeah.
to the point where now the interviewer is uncomfortable. But at the same time, if you keep the questions in a place of curiosity and not so much well, what kind of, like with the attitude,
Yeah.
instead more of a curiosity. Like literally, if I walk into an interview place and the registration or the what are they called, the
Reception.
person at there we go, the reception is hello, please have a seat, and I'm friendly by nature anyway, so me just saying, oh, how long have you been here for, and if she say anything under three
Yesterday.
months, red flag.
Yeah.
I don't have to ask a whole lot. Even within the interview, I get it. If you don't want to ask questions, there's a curiosity piece that, again, let's say they say one of your job duties is you got to drive your car. You have no questions. Are y'all
I
covering
got
my
paid my
insurance?
mileage.
Yeah. Do I get mileage? Like these
Yeah.
are questions
Do you
that
sometimes ask questions you already know the answer to?
absolutely.
Because okay, so for example, okay, I like I mentioned earlier, I used to be the person that never asked questions until I saw videos and people are like, nah, you need to ask questions. Like it
Yeah.
helps you feel more interested in the job, you know. So in this past week's I was gonna say episode, in this past week's interview, I asked a question I knew the fucking answer to, but
Yep.
I asked just to have a question to begin a conversation on, you know, because we had a couple minutes. So she's like, hey, do you have any questions, you know? And then um I thought of that. I was like, I don't want to say no. Like,
Yeah.
let me try to really get
Let me
this
find
job, you know?
something to ask.
And I was like, "Oh, so this program like an outpatient program?" Because she never mentioned that, but I
Right.
know what program that is, so I know it
Yeah.
is an outpatient. And then she's like, "Yeah, you know, it is an outpatient." And I was like, "Hey, what's up?" Like, and
Okay.
then we got into a different like little conversation, and then we used the time wisely, and it was over with in a positive sense. Because I feel like
Right.
if she would have said, if I would have said like, "No, I think I'm okay," it's kind of like, "You sure, bitch?" Like
Like it's a whole, yeah.
it
But do
just
you
makes me
see
feel like
how
standoffish, like, "I'm
right.
fine, no
But
worries."
even that question was, again, it used the technique of just
Like,
curiosity.
curiosity.
Like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah,
is this, because again, you're asking the question you already know the answer to, but it's kind of like what kind of leader do you consider yourself months later I already know. Or what does it mean to lead with love, and you can't give me an answer? That's
Yeah.
a great question. Like it, that's an intimidating question. I can understand that. If I was walking and I was like, do you know how to lead with love? It's like, damn, that
Yeah,
may
'cause
not be everybody's
that's
style.
more of an attack on the person,
Absolutely.
you know,
Absolutely.
as
As
opposed
opposed
to the
to,
program or whatever it is that you're trying to apply for.
right. I would even ask, and a question that I like to ask is, how would you describe the culture of the office?
Mm,
Like, what is the culture like? Is it,
okay.
very intense and everybody's like focused, or do people have cliques? Everybody has cliques.
Yeah.
Like, what is, and whatever that person says, you take it with a grain of salt because you haven't been there yet. But usually
Experience it
people
on
are
your own.
honest because you're not trying to attack them. If I
Yeah.
were to ask, if we were to rewind and I would say, what is the culture of the beep, beep, beep? What do you think the response would be? Right. you know, I I would have, again, been able to discern what it looks like, what it feels like, based on the way people are moving.
Yeah.
Do I see people smiling, or do I see people mobbing, looking upset all the time? Like, yeah, you want to
I'm
know those
upset.
things.
This is like, Jesus.
Yeah.
All right. I'm not gonna talk about that place because I'm over that place in my mind right now. But
Yeah, we done.
you want to talk about another tip for an interview? Or
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you want to talk about like before interview. Like,
Yeah.
how do you? Well, I know you were mentioning how you prepare, but you wanted to say another tip?
Yeah, like I said, one of the ways that I prepare for any interview is, one, like I said, do my research. Two, the questions that I have, make them curious, but also really getting serious about what I want. I think the hardest thing about trying to look for new employment was really understanding, like, what direction am I trying to go?
Yeah.
Like, do I want to level up? Do I want to do management? Do I want to do something more remote? Like, what is it that I desire? And I feel like that was probably part of the hardest thing for me.
I think that's when you have to recognize, like what you did, make a list of what it is that you want for you and where you see yourself next. Because,
Yeah.
I mean, people have always said, like, oh, you can't just randomly change things that you do. And it's like, we're in 2022, bro.
Yeah.
It's all about changing your direction at this point. So,
Yes.
I think that's scary for sure because that's where I'm at right now. But
Yeah.
as easily as I say, it's as easily as it comes. Like, you just have to
Yeah.
fuck it, dive into it.
Agreed.
Because just like this says, if you're not letting go of what no longer serves you, you're not going to get what does.
You're not gonna, you're not gonna make that change.
Yeah.
So LinkedIn is a really great platform. I go through all the platforms. So LinkedIn, my sister actually helped me set up my profile, and it was like wording things a certain way. Making sure your resume is A1. That's probably the biggest tip. I don't know how we didn't mention that, but your resume should be A1 when you're thinking about leaving, or in the middle of leaving, or even if you're unemployed at the moment. The way that your resume is framed, or should be framed, plays a lot into the kinds of jobs that even consider you. You want to have keywords all up and through there. You want to make sure that, for example, if you are just, so in our last position, we were considered service coordinators. If you're doing that type of work and you want to go somewhere else and do the same kind of work, then sure. Yeah. A glorified case manager.
But that's the thing. I mean, I think even you're the one that said it. These jobs use software generators to pull out key terms from your resume.
Yeah.
So if you're not already using those key terms that are compared to the job description of what you're applying for, then they're kind of going to toss out your resume
Resume.
because
Yeah.
it's not aligning or even having certain similarities. So
Right.
that's why, um, I mean, kind of going off of what you just said, but that's another thing that we were talking about. It's good to look at the job description of what you're trying to apply for, because then you could tweak your resume, and
Exactly.
that's not a lie because you're just using the proper terms.
Exactly.
But as make sure you're not lying. Like actually know what
Yeah.
you're doing because that's
Make
different.
sure you're truthful, but also like I was helping somebody else with their resume who also works where we used to. Um and one of the things that I really noticed was the breaking up of your tasks, right?
Okay.
So while you could say, for example, service coordinator, and then you could say lead service coordinator, or you could basically put them in pockets to make it appear as though you have either been promoted or you've changed your job in some way. So, for example, the minute we started doing document specialist shit, oh, you best believe I got a whole nother. I got a whole nother position, like in my resume. Now, did I really get promoted and have another position? No, but did I start doing somebody else's work? Yes. So you might even say you went from document specialist or specializing in documents to service coordinator. That way it appears that there has been some sort of change and that you're not just in any company staying stagnant.
Yeah.
You really want that on your resume when it comes to, especially if you don't have much experience. You want to stretch that and make it appear like you are progressing.
Yeah. I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
Because basically that's one thing. It's like if you are being given other tasks that are not on your job description, but they're definitely someone else's position, put that shit on your resume.
Put it on your
Don't
resume.
let that skill go to waste just because it's not on your current job.
Absolutely.
No,
Yeah.
that's
And
what
that's
you
another
learn and
thing.
what you do. So
Yeah. And like you were saying with the generator software, it really is a matter of making sure again those keywords are throughout your resume. So for example, one of the things I had to add to my resume was the word create, or
okay,
I was able to create and implement because that shows leadership as opposed to, oh, input data. No, I
mhm,
created a whole database. Like I did that.
yeah,
And so you one of the things, this is why I say get support and help with that, because as a person with codependency or as a person who struggles with self-esteem or understanding yourself, you're sometimes you don't even realize you're putting the bare minimum when
or
really
not reflecting your true skills.
correct, not
Yeah,
reflecting your true skill because you want to, like it's mediocre, it's you're not really sure, but when you get the verbiage and when you start to understand, like no, I pretty much did that. And that goes back to that, not wanting to quote unquote sell yourself, but at the end of the day, if you're the best candidate for this job, you got to show up like you are. And
yeah,
so even if you struggle to do that in your interview, you at least want to do that within the verbiage of your resume.
yeah. I mean, but that is very important to reflect in your job interview. Like
Yeah.
the way you answer the questions they give you, um, try to tie it into the skill that you have learned in your past jobs because
Yeah.
usually they ask questions and it's kind of one of those of like in your experience have you ever, and it
Mhm.
doesn't have to be like present, it could be in any of your jobs, have you ever done this, and it shows you've gained a different skill. So
Yeah.
it kind of, I mean, it doesn't have to be a full representation of what your resume is, but it should reflect what you actually know. That way you could like sell yourself at least in those points for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Um, let's see. Oh, one of the first tip that's on that I wrote on here was uh practice your answers to common interview questions.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
wanted to bring this one up because we definitely had different views on it. So,
Right.
um I'll share mine first just because
Go
it's
for it.
more simpler, but okay, when I was younger and more insecure than I am now, um, I would stay stuck on this process. Like I would like think of every question possible and how I would answer it. And
Mhm.
I mean, now I say more insecure, but I was also like my anxiety was bad. So I understood that that was part of my anxiety. I wanted to make sure I had an answer to every little thing just in case something happened something happened. And that's anxiety. You're always preparing for the anticipation of what if. And it's like there is no what if, bro.
Right.
Whatever comes is because that's what's supposed to come? And
Yeah.
I see that now, but before I like I said, like I would stay stuck on this, like thinking of everything possible. And what I understood from that was like I just overwhelmed myself more. Like I wasn't able to sleep. Like it caused all like it derailed into all that stuff. So when I was ready for the interview, I was fucking drained. I was like
Yeah.
not ready for it. Like I pushed myself even further from being prepared for it when I would do that. So now what I do is like I don't think of anything. Honestly, I don't practice. I just it's more of
Wing
a
it.
relaxation day of just clear your mind to ensure that whatever I always say like I would say, yeah, in this instance, God, right? I always say, like, pray, like, whatever it is that's supposed to come through me regarding whatever's supposed to be answered, let it channel through me. And if it is what it is, it is what it is. I was like,
Right.
I understand that if that is for me, it will be for me, regardless of what I say or where I get stumped up on. Like, that was my biggest issue. I would think so hard of what I needed to answer or what was a perfect answer for these questions
Right.
that when I was in face with the person asking me the things, I was kind of like shuffling through my brain, trying to remember the answer to make sure that's
Mhm.
what I would say.
Yeah.
And you could, I mean, I can't obviously see from the outside of me, but I could tell that I'm just like looking stupid trying to look for the answer instead of just genuinely saying whatever it is that I've actually experienced. Because at the
Yeah.
end of the day, they're not looking for textbook answers, they're looking for your actual experience. And that's things you don't have to study for unless you for sure aren't fit for the job, you know?
Right. And
So,
you tapping and finessing anyway.
yeah.
So, I think for the questions portion, I do prepare for them, but the way in which I prepare is almost similar to what you said. It's understanding the underlying point of the question. So,
Yeah.
the example we used was, tell me about your one of your weaknesses, or what is a weakness that you have. Most people would give you, oh, I'm late or whatever it is. Like if it was to be honest,
I'm
I'm late.
Let me tell you, I'm never gonna be on time, so just give me a free range schedule.
Yeah,
You got
yeah,
the right person here.
yeah. But my work will be done. Instead of something more along the lines of like, and I think we both said the same thing. Oh, I would consider myself a perfectionist. If things don't get done, I really feel like I need to perfect it or focus on it until it is. That
Yeah.
gives people the idea that you, for one, you're willing to go over and beyond, which is the opposite of quiet quitting, which is the opposite of setting boundaries. Like, oh, this person will stay late and work, break their back. I'm
Yeah,
not. I'm not her anymore. Okay, she's gone. Um,
that ain't me no more.
yeah. So the underlying question there is, how can you give them something positive or authentic, but still frame it in a matter that lets them know that you can still do this job, right? So maybe one of the things you may say, give me a weakness, you may give them an old one, something that you used to struggle with that you no longer struggle with anymore. And, something like, I'm like, what's something I could say I used to? Um, I don't know. I mean, I feel like pick a struggle, I suppose. Maybe time, even if it was time management. Something I really used to struggle with was setting, you know, um a healthy work life balance, where I was able to leave work at work. But now I've have XYZ, I hit the gym. It's something that I've overcome, but I learned a lot during that season.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah, you just with your weaknesses, right? That's what it is. You just have to like, yes, it's a negative thing, but you're turning it around because you're recognizing it. So it's like
Yeah.
it's a weakness. I think they just want to. The question is presented to for them to understand that you recognize your weaknesses. I think.
Yes.
So as long as you're able to give them something that you turn
Yeah.
or are turning around, it doesn't really have to be turned around already. That's all they want to know, that you're able to work through complications, basically.
Yes. And not only that, but pick something that's not required. Like if you're going into software
Yeah,
data, don't be like my weakness is Excel. Like we're not going to give that to you.
well, thank you,
Um
sir. We will be calling you that.
Thanks. Like make it make sense. If
Yeah,
you're going into data and spelling is hard for you, fine. But I've learned to double check and use Grammarly, so that's not no longer an issue.
or have
Um
other people check your shit for you.
yeah, or I've learned to rly on people to proofread. Like whatever. Thanks, shout out to Josie. True story, bro. True story.
For real.
Things like that. Pick something that's not a requirement,
Yeah,
that you may or may have not struggled with in the past.
yeah. I mean, yeah, I mean, you have your, these are the common questions, right, that you do practice for, which are the negatives, this or weaknesses, strengths.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I would say, like, if you are, the job or the type of job that it is, you could also like look up because a lot of questions seem to be situational. Like, okay, in this type of scenario, what would you do? And like I said, those are easier to come by or like respond to because it's more like, well, what have you done? And
Yeah.
if you haven't experienced anything, what would you do? Don't ever say,
Right.
like, oh, I never dealt with that. Like that
Yeah.
makes me think that you can't even critically think of something
Critically
on the
think.
spot.
Yeah.
Um, my thing when I don't know something, like if they ask me, um, do you know? Oh, because the lady asked me like, oh, what documentation softwares are you aware of? And I gave her like the ones I know, and like I told her even like the formats of notes that I use,
Mm-hmm.
and and it was still none of the ones that they use there, dude. And I was just like, fuck. And then
Damn.
she said, yeah, she was like, oh, we use I think Orchard or some shit like that, and I was like, oh yeah, I was like, I actually have heard of that, but I have never personally used it. But I'm more than, what did I say? I'm more than open to learning about it. I was like, I've understood that most of them are pretty similar. I was like, so I'm pretty sure this one will be
Yeah.
understandable. Like that, I said.
Like I'm tech savvy. No
Yeah,
worries.
like, I got this shit. I'm young.
Yeah, girl, right. And after trying 5 different podcast freaking platforms, I understand that most of them are the same. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll be fine.
As of today, we've recognized that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
So
you're right. They ask things like, what would you do in this situation? Or what does it look like? And again, part of that research, part of, understanding what the job entails before, if you had the time, which most people don't, but if you had the time to understand their protocol, you would answer the same way it is in the handbook, or the
Yeah.
same way that logically makes sense. Let's, all the trainings we took, Stephen was caught stealing out of the, what do you do if you're a manager? What do you do? Do you call him to the side? Do you let him slide? Do you write him up? Like, you would go with the protocol.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all they want to know is, are you trustworthy?
Yeah, basically. Yeah, a lot of it is like they just want to know that you are adaptable, that you, if you're thrown into something, that you will be able to troubleshoot and get through it. So as long as you're responding in like a, I think, yeah, like critical is like the thing, like you basically are able to like think on the spot and like formulate something to be an appropriate response.
Right.
I did want to share this like last thing. Remember, because we came across this when we were doing research for it. So it's called the STAR method.
Period.
So S stands for situation, T is task, A is action, and the other one is results, right? So basically, answer the questions that they're giving you in a like a narrative way, like make it seem like a story. So situation would be like, okay, whatever question they threw at you, make a situation for that you've experienced. The task that they're asking you, basically, what did they ask you if you've done that before? That's the task. Like, yeah, I've done this, and this. The action basically is how you resulted or resolved the situation, which then equals R for results.
Right.
Because you
So,
want to show that, okay, he didn't just deal with it, but never found a solution for it,
so what does that look like if I'm the interviewer and I say to you, who's an interviewee, give me a time where you've had to deal with a disruptive or disgruntled customer or client. How did you handle that situation? So using that method, the STAR method, how would you answer that?
I think I would say something along the lines like, during my or at my current position, we deal with individuals who are homeless, um, which oftentimes they do suffer from mental health, issues, which we, come about a person who is in a situation of distress or whatever. I
Yeah.
was like, and then the task would be like, you know, if I had to address the situation, I would approach the individual. You know, you have to use those I use the terms of de-escalation. That's a
Yeah.
big word
Yeah.
I use because it shows that you know de-escalation techniques.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm saying this because this was a question they asked me, and I like these were the terms
Love
I
that.
threw them.
Yeah.
And then I talk because this one was specifically like a like psychosis mental health thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, um, we do contact we politely talk to them, use the escalation techniques of like giving them space, talking to them, at a low tone because you're not going to escalate the situation by
Right.
how you respond to them.
Exactly.
And then we call PMRT if needed, which is
an action.
yeah, because then I
Mhm.
tell them, I was like, if it's a situation that it's beyond what we can do for the client, we would have to contact PMRT for them to come and evaluate the client. And then that's oh, so you have dealt with PMRT, and I'm like, yes, I have.
Yes, I have.
So, and then that shows your results because you didn't just leave the client. They're fucking going through an episode. Let them know you're actually addressing it, and it depends on what it is that's going on with the client because everything's different, right? Sometimes everyone's episodes show up differently, so you need to be able to kind of navigate based off what they're presenting you with at the time.
Yeah, makes sense.
Sometimes you even have to remove the client if it's just like this happened a lot in the group home when I dealt with the kids. You have to remove them because when they have an audience, they just
Oh,
go
they love that shit.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's different.
that's a different de-escalation techniques of knowing what to do for certain situations. But yeah, you basically share the story, state what it is, like basically reiterate the question of what they told you, and then share how you will resolve it and or
Right.
have done in the past, obviously. But yeah, that's the STAR technique there.
Well, I love that. And it makes sense. It's literally, again, they want to know what situation were you in?
Mhm.
What tasks were you assigned? What actions did you take because of that? And then what was the end result?
Yeah.
So were you able to de-escalate or not? Was the PMRT called or not? Like, what was the outcome is really what they're looking for. So it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, do you have any last tips for everyone?
Yeah, the last tip is tell the truth.
Yeah.
Um and I guess tell the truth, but also understand what your truth is. So by that I mean, don't get me wrong, we all exaggerate to some degree, especially if we feel we're underqualified for something. But for the most part, be authentic. The person sitting across from you is just that, a person. If the job is for you, if the position is for you, it will be for you.
It will align, dude.
It will align. And that's the thing. It's it's so important to not just look at any interview or any position as just, something to do because you need money, but it needs to align with you as well. My truth looks different from Josie's. Josie's looks different from Joe Schmo's. But at the same time, if I'm going to enter a workforce, it's important that I speak my truth.
Yeah.
So I encourage everybody to do the same, because again, you have those moments where you like, yeah, you stretch it just a smidge. It's the difference between telling a blatant lie, like, yes, I have my master's, bitch, where, versus, I am progressing and I'm still working towards, but people will
Higher
respect more.
education.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, oftentimes it's like if you show up authentically, that's usually what gets you the job the most because they vibe with your personality, you know.
Yeah.
Sometimes we think it's all about our skills. And sometimes
Yeah.
they can even like bypass that because they actually fuck with who you were, you know. And
Yeah. Yep.
so if you're not showing up authentically, then it's definitely gonna be a no. And
Yeah.
they're not gonna get you. So
It's a no for me. It's a no for me. I'm gonna get that sound bite.
yeah, so yeah, that's definitely a perfect point to end with. Just be genuine with what you do.
Yeah.
And don't stress it, dude. I mean, it is
Yeah.
stressful, but I mean, I say it coming from the person that stresses all the time, but I literally have learned like it's not that serious. And if you do stress, meditate before your interview. That's what I do all the time,
Yeah.
and it helps the hell out of me. So
Yeah.
make sure you get your rest, meditate, and do what you gotta do.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah. And don't forget, these people need y'all. Okay.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's my biggest thing is I no longer go into any position without first seeing if they meet some of my requirements and my needs. And so look out for those red flags. So yeah, I mean, again, we're letting go of past things, we're implementing things that we have learned, and we're to move forward. And that's kind of what it takes.
Yeah. Well, hope you guys learned something today. Let go of what you got to let go of, to be honest, because
Absolutely.
it ain't going to go well if you don't make room for what you want. So make sure you leave that room for growth and what you're worthy of.
Big facts. Y'all have a good one. Peace.